I think when I noticed that the depression was a problem in my life was early in my marriage, when things started to get bad.
After I graduated from high school, I went off to college, and that's when really the depression began. My
wife and I were actually divorced for 2.5 years as a result of my bipolar and when I hadn't been treated, and the depression that was associated with that.
I was working at my desk one morning. It was probably 10:30, and my mind shifted on me. And when my mind shifted, I went into a mental space that was unknown and greatly alarming.
I was suicidal and wasn't telling people about that. And I was becoming very, very angry.
There were the feelings of not caring whether I woke up the next morning. The feelings of I could just drive off this road.
I just thought that that's the way life was. I thought, well, you know, the world is a depressing place, and you get down and you just deal with it.
There was another car in the other lane coming very close to a head-on collision, and I just didn't care.
I had this sort of moment of clarity where I thought, I'm going to kill myself today, and I'm going to leave my infant son without a father.
I was not making rational decisions. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't close my eyes. The CEO of the company approached me and said, "Why don't you take a leave of absence?"
And eventually came to a point where it wasn't, you know, if I commit suicide, it was when I commit suicide, that I really became convinced that that's how I was going to die.
I felt like I was being sucked into this, this darkness that I couldn't stay up above.
The vast majority of people that have some sort of mental health issue initially seek help from their primary care provider.
But care from my primary care physician didn't work.
Of all the people that have depression, only about 20% get adequate care for it. The other 80% either aren't getting care at all or they're getting, you know, substandard care.
Looking back on my experience was ending up in my primary care physician's office with gut problems and then breaking into tears. And in retrospect, if she had been more aware of the symptoms of depression, because the two often go hand in hand, maybe I would have known enough to get some help then.
A big focus of what we want to do at the Depression Center is to not only provide excellent care here, but to help equip people, other providers, other mental health providers, primary care providers, with the skills that they need to better recognize, to better treat, and to have more integrated care.
Being a part of an organization now that is trying to create awareness and treat folks that go through the same thing I went through.
In my opinion, the number one obstacle for people getting help for any kind of mental health issue is the stigma that's involved.
And I'll never forget the day that I went down to see the psychiatrist on the campus, and I carried a stack of books with me so I would look like a student and not a patient that was going to see the psychiatrist.
The company I worked for said, when I asked about coming back, said, "No, thank you, we're done with your services. Thank you very much."
The best way to reduce stigma is to talk about it. There's not a person in this country that isn't affected by depression or bipolar disorder.
Eventually, I was able to deal with this in my own mind and get past the stigma of having a mental illness, of being depressed. And I did eventually start leaving my books at home.
That stigma of the disease I've been able to overcome by coming back to a more normal place.
Once I realized that there was hope and that there was a different way, that's when I started to be able to get onto the path to getting better.
If you can get yourself with help out of this hopeless pit, I have hope. Look what I have to live for.
It's haunting to me when I think about the fact that there's 30,000 people in the United States that commit suicide every year, and think how many of them wouldn't have done that if they had had hope. And that's really what we do here at the Depression Center, is try to give people hope and let them know that there is another way, that they don't have to commit suicide, they don't have to drink, they don't have to do those things to numb their pain, that there is hope and that they can get better.
And I clearly remember one day walking out of my front door, and the tulips were up. It was early spring, and I clearly remember looking and saying, "Oh my gosh, the tulips are red." just the joy that has returned to life with the color.
Here at the Depression Center, our work externally focuses both with mental health providers and with physical health providers in primary care. We need to help everyone improve their ability to deliver the highest quality care. By doing those things, then we send those people back out to their own practices, and they're going to give much better care to their patients.
I think it's great that there is now a depression center. We have centers for diabetes, we have centers for cancer, we have centers for all of these different things, but now we really have a center that's been developed to deal with people with depression.
And the idea was to say, well, let's pool our resources and let's follow the model that cancer followed in the early 70s, where the med schools, the research institutions said, instead of working independently, let's work together. When we have these members of the national network, for example, if somebody at one place like Stanford or Harvard is doing something that's new and innovative, they can share that with us, and then we can start doing that approach here in Colorado. They can do research that has much bigger numbers in it, and by doing that, we can bring new innovative things to the general public much faster. I think it's pretty universal that when people have experienced depression or bipolar and they get better, that they want to give back. I was incredibly fortunate that the moon and the stars kind of aligned, that there was this depression center that was opening and that I read about, and that I had the background and skills to be able to get a job there.
When you have the opportunity to reach out to someone else and be that support person or help them work through something, help them to get the help that they need, it gives meaning to what I've been through.
And today, Louise and I have a very successful little consulting business.
I work at the Depression Center because of my own experience, and it's fueled by that personal passion. And George, when he made his gift, it's the same thing. He was fueled by his own personal experience of growing up with a mom who had bipolar disorder, and that passion fueled his decision to make a gift to start the Depression Center. And I think everyone who has experienced this, and everyone has, can be driven by that passion to give something and to give of themselves to help us do what it is we're trying to do.
Well, I lived with a mother who was bipolar. And I thought it would be a pretty good thing if we could bring that brain disease out of the closet and have people talk about it, recognize it, and accept it, and find a way to cure it.
The journey back has just been amazing.
Having been there once, I'm never going there again.
My wife and I started talking again, and she said, you know, you're a completely different person.
My relationship with my husband has been more two-sided.
And now that I know that better is possible, now that I know what better feels like, I'll never ever go back there.
I think the way things have changed is just so positive.
It's just been better and better all the time, because I know that I'm giving something great to my family.
I mean, now we have two people instead of one person depending on the other one to fill that void.
And as a result of getting better and getting the help that I got, my wife and I were then able to work out our differences and get back together and reunite our family.
How individuals can help themselves and how their families can be involved is the huge change.
When people support the Depression Center in a very real way, they're helping us to transform lives. They're helping us to improve the lives of people all across the state and in the whole Rocky Mountain region.
My hope for the center is to provide more and more care for the public.
We're trying to start a movement here. We want to radically change the way that mood disorders are treated and viewed in the state. We want to radically change the way that people access care and improve those things. You know, we don't want incremental change.
Do what needs to be done to deal with depression.